Welcome to the Baker Files, where two generations take on true crime from two very different perspectives. I'm Adrianne, and I'm here with my son and co-host Tyler.
Hello, welcome back.
Each episode, we open a new file and dig into the crimes, the choices, and the questions that keep us wondering why. We don't claim to have all the answers. We're just a mom and son looking at the same case through different lenses, sharing our thoughts, theories, and probably disagreeing somewhere along the way. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfortable, and let's open the Baker Files. This is our second episode, and we're going to be talking about Chris Watts today. Did I remember when this case came out in 2018? And it was pretty profound, so we'll get into it. So this case starts in Frederick, Colorado in August of 2018. From the outside, the Watts family really did look like they had a pretty normal, happy life. We had Chris and Shanann Watts. They had two little girls, Bella, who was 4, and Cece, who was 3. Shanann was also pregnant. She was about 15 weeks along with their first little boy, who they'd already named Nico. Now, if you looked at Shanann's Facebook, you would probably think this family had everything together. She posted a lot. Family videos, vacations, the girls, Chris. She was also heavily involved with Thrive. So social media was a big part of her life and her business. That's how she promoted Thrive, which was a health brand.
Okay, yeah.
Chris always seemed like this quiet, supportive husband in the background. But as we know with most cases we're probably going to cover on this podcast, we see people from the outside, and what's actually happening inside the house can be two completely different things. Nobody really knows what's going on behind closed doors. Because behind that image, the Watts family had some pretty serious problems. One of the biggest was money. They had filed bankruptcy in 2015, and we're not talking about a small amount of debt. Their bankruptcy filing showed they had more than $400,000 in liability.
Sheesh.
Yeah, lots of money. They also had a huge house in Colorado with a very large mortgage. By 2018, they were reportedly behind on the mortgage again. And Chris later told investigators that money had been taken out of his retirement account to catch up on the payments. So he was borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. Their HOA was also taking legal action over unpaid dues. The girls were also in a very private, expensive preschool. So you have this family that looks very successful on the outside and online, but financially they were under a lot of pressure. And I want to be really clear here. Being in debt doesn't make someone murder their family. Obviously, if it did, the entire country would be in trouble. But, I think it's important when we're looking at Chris's mindset because his family is starting to feel very different from the life he's presenting to everyone else. He's married. He has 2 young kids. There's another baby on the way. They're struggling financially. And then Chris starts to make choices that are going to completely change the direction of this family. In June of 2018, Chris becomes involved with a coworker named Nicole Kessinger, and this relationship moves pretty fast. Chris tells Nicole that he and Shanann are separated. He basically makes it sound like their marriage is already over. The problem is Shanann doesn't know her marriage is supposedly over. She's actually trying to save it. Around this same time, Shanann takes Bella and Cece to North Carolina for several weeks to visit family. Chris stays alone in Colorado, and suddenly he has all this free time. He doesn't have Shanann there, the girls. He's spending a lot of time with Nicole. I mean, they're going out on dates. He's staying over at her apartment. They're talking on the phone every day for hours. They're looking at apartments together. They're planning on vacations. I mean, they're making a future. They're really thinking about a future together.
Yeah, that's where it all starts.
Right? I mean, I heard even Nicole was looking at wedding dresses. That's how serious he had her thinking it was. And then these two lives are eventually going to collide because he has a real life with Shanann and the girls. But meanwhile, Shanann is starting to notice that something is wrong. Chris is distant when his text messages are kind of cold and he's not really texting much. He's not saying, I love you. He's not affectionate. And Shanann starts texting her friends about it. She's asking if they think Chris might be cheating. She's wondering if he even loves her anymore. She actually ordered a relationship book and had it sent to Chris because she's trying to figure out how to save their marriage. But reportedly, Chris just threw that book away. So Shanann is actively trying to repair this marriage. Meanwhile, Chris is having an affair and telling another woman that he's basically already separated. And that brings us to the night everything changed. Now we get to August 13th. Shanann has been on a business trip in Arizona, and her friend Nicole Atkinson picks her up from the airport and drops her off at home just before 2 in the morning. There is doorbell camera footage from a neighbor of Shanann walking into their house, and that's the last known footage of her alive. Now, this is where things get complicated because everything we know about what happened inside of that house comes from Chris. And Chris's story changes several times. According to one of his latest versions, he and Shanann had a very emotional conversation about their marriage. Chris tells her he doesn't love her anymore and he wants to separate. He claims that Shanann tells him he'll never see the girls again, and Chris strangles her. Now, Chris says Bella walks into their bedroom after Shanann is dead and asks what's wrong with her mommy. Just imagine that for a second. Bella's 4 years old. Chris wraps Shanann's body and takes her downstairs. He puts her in his work truck. And according to his later prison confession, Bella and Cece are still alive at this point. He puts his daughters in the truck with their mom's body, and then he drives almost an hour to an Anadarko oil site. Anadarko's where he works.
Oh, yeah, I totally know this case.
Yeah, you probably heard about it.
Yeah, I totally watched a whole thing about this back in the day, I remember.
So he takes them to the site called Survey 319. According to Chris, once they get to the oil site, he kills Cece first. He smothers her, and Bella knows something is wrong. Chris later claims that Bella asked him if what happened to Cece was going to happen to her, and then he kills Bella too. He puts Bella and Cece into separate oil tankers, those big old huge oil tankers, and then he buries Shanann in a shallow grave nearby. Then Chris goes to work, like it's a normal Monday. But this is where the investigation begins. Shanann's friend, Nicole Atkinson, becomes very incredibly important to this case. Nicole knows Shanann. She knows her routine, and then Shanann isn't answering her phone, and she's missing doctor's appointments. Nicole goes to the house, and she knows something must be wrong, so she calls the police. Chris comes home while officers are there, and right away his story is that he doesn't know where Shanann and the girls are. He says maybe Shanann took the girls and went somewhere. But where? Her car's in the garage, her purse is inside, her medication's there, the girl's medication is still there. So how exactly did she leave? Then police go to the neighbor's house because the neighbor has a security camera. The footage shows Chris backing his work truck into the driveway early that morning, and this is one of the most fascinating parts of the case to watch. Chris is standing in their living room with the police while watching the footage, and he looks incredibly uncomfortable. He's talking a lot. He's putting his hands on his head. He looks really nervous. And after Chris leaves, the neighbors immediately tell the officers that that's not normal for Chris. He's usually a really quiet guy, and that's not what they saw that day. At this point, police start asking more questions. They ask Chris if there's another woman. He lies and says no. Lie number 1. Or honestly, probably lie number 50 at this point. Eventually, he does admit he's having an affair, and investigators identify Nicole Kessinger.
Mm-hmm.
And now the story of the devoted husband whose family mysteriously disappears is starting to fall apart.
Yeah, no, and to go back, it was like, because I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen the footage of this because this was a pretty big case, but like the body language was so obscure. It was very rigid, and the guy just, it was very almost incriminating the way that it was. It was like, obviously the dude was a horrible liar and a horrible actor in that act, but it was just like, I don't know, how do you even go about dealing with that? Like, when you're in that situation, you obviously know that you just committed these atrocities to your family, but what's going through their mind, and what's their operating like? How are they going to conduct themselves? Like, making these decisions of like, okay, obviously they made the decision to lie, but it's just like, what in the world do you expect to get out of this?
Right.
There's just
Exactly.
no way that, yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild.
Yeah. How do you think
What
you're
the
going to
human, well, kind of more or less what the human brain can kind of deal with under that amount of
stress?
stress, but also something just, or to also try to act so cordially
Right. Do
when,
you remember his interview when, not interview, but like his plea when he was doing the interview on the news? That was what stands out to me a lot because he was on the news like, I don't know where my family is. I just want him to come home. The house is so quiet without the girls.
yep,
And just the
yep,
way he was just off. Like it just seemed, I remember everybody talking online, right? Because it was 2018
mm-hmm.
and Facebook was thing. Now you go on TikTok and see everything. But I remember people like commenting like he just seems weird, like it doesn't seem genuine at all. So like from the get,
Oh yeah.
people could tell like what's up with this guy, like where are they? And I remember just where are they? What's going on with them?
It's just, I don't know if it comes to stupidity or what, but in the modern world of genuinely believing that you're just going to erase the current life that you have, and I say erase, very unfortunately, it's a lot lighter than what it is, but it's like trying to get rid of
Mm-hmm.
your daughters, your wife, the life that you have. And obviously with the financial struggles, like all of it culminated to what it did, but that will just never make any sense
No.
of, nope, I'm just going to, like, this is the option. Like, in their minds, it has to be just like eradicating the problem because the problem is his current situation and he wants to move forward with
Mm-hmm.
obviously this other woman. But that's the answer, really?
Yeah,
It's kind of pathetic a little bit.
it really is. Yeah.
Not even a little bit, a lot.
Yeah. So once he's taken into custody, right, he agrees to take a polygraph, which is a decision I don't understand. Why would you take a polygraph? Like,
Well,
I
I
just
mean,
don't get that.
obviously, the way that he's acting, he probably thought he can get away with it anyway.
Right.
So he's like, what's the difference between being
But
able to beat a
unless,
polygraph? Because I feel like a lot of it comes down to ego,
no, true. Yeah.
of like, I just did these crazy things. I'm going to get away with it. I'm going to go live this la fairy tale land reality with this woman. And what's a polygraph? So it's like,
Yeah.
I can imagine a lot of killers in that aspect. Their egos are so high. It
But
could
I
be an
mean, even
aspect, but I don't
though,
know.
like before the test, though, the CBI agent, Tammy Lee, basically tells them that if he had anything to do with his family disappearance, taking a polygraph would be an incredibly stupid decision. I mean, he was told
Right.
that by the
Obviously.
investigator,
But that's the thing is,
and
he's already so
he
deluded,
takes it anyway.
you know?
Yeah.
Like, you can't do something like this and commit an act like this without having something obviously wrong with you. And so, even being point blank told that you're just an idiot if you do
Yeah.
so, it doesn't even really, yeah.
And he failed badly.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was bad.
He fell to the public eye. Everybody
Yeah, oh,
knew
yeah,
it.
he knew.
So, I
Everybody knew.
mean, hook him up to a machine. Yeah, of course he's
Yeah.
going to fail.
So of course investigators tell Chris they know he's lying, right? And then is when his story changes for the first time. So investigators use an interrogation tactic by giving Chris a possible scenario. So like, they ask maybe Shanann did something to the girls and you just reacted to it, right? Is that what happened? And he just grabs onto that idea.
Yep.
He then asked to speak to his dad. And I remember watching the interrogation tapes and he has his dad come in. And that's when he claims that he saw Shanann kill Bella and Cece on the baby monitor. And then he went and strangled Shanann because he got enraged because he saw her killing his children, right? So he's now admitted he killed his pregnant wife, but he's blaming Shanann for the murder of their girls. But investigators, of course, don't believe him, right? And eventually he does tell them where the bodies are.
Yeah.
So Shanann is buried at Cervi 319 in that shallow grave, and then Bella and Cece are in the oil tanks. And I think it's important to mention that the openings on these tanks were only 8 inches wide. So he literally had to physically force his daughter's bodies through those openings. At this point, he's arrested.
Yeah.
And then in November of 2018, Chris pleads guilty for killing Shanann, Bella, and Cece. So legally, he's finally accepting responsibility for all 3 murders. But the story doesn't end there. Because in February of 2019, investigators go to Wisconsin and interview Chris while he's in prison. And Chris changes his story again. Now he admits Shanann didn't kill the girls. He did. He said Bella and Cece were alive when they left the house. He does claim that they rode in the truck with Shanann's body and he killed them at the oil site. So let's think about the different versions Chris has told, right? First, his family just disappeared. Then Shanann killed the girls and he killed Shanann. Then he killed all three of them. And even his descriptions of the murder has changed over time. So even now, like he's never, said this is actually what happened. So I don't know if we actually know the full story of what happened inside that house. Chris eventually receives multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. He's currently in prison in Wisconsin, so he's never going to get out. He's never going to get paroled. He's never going to be able to get out. Good. So that brings us back to the question we always ask on this podcast. Why? Because Chris had options. He could have told Shanann about the affair. He could have asked for a divorce. He could have just left and started a new life. People do it every single day. Instead, he kills his pregnant wife, kills his 3-year-old daughter, kills his 4-year-old daughter, and disposes of their body at his workplace. At his workplace.
Yeah. No.
So do we think Chris's final prison confession is actually the truth? Or do you think we're still hearing another version of Chris's story? Is it ever
honestly, I do
be?
believe that that's probably the case. Going back to kind of why it played out the way it was, it more or less was just the psychological derailment of him personally dealing with what was happening, but also trying to move forward in the best way that he can. So it was just, that's interesting to see, is like it started out with they just disappeared. That's the easiest cop out to go
Right.
to.
Oh, yeah.
And that was to give him time to figure it out. And due to his incredibly poor ability to maintain any kind of confidence in his own stories, due to his body language, due to his interviews, due to it just being so plainly obvious, he just kept going and going and building, and it just snowballed into what it did. So that's not too surprising.
Right.
But obviously, I mean, it all comes back to sitting us talking about it is, why in the world would anybody fall to that conclusion and then actually act it out?
Yeah. Or why would you think you could get away with it? And I think, too, her friend, Shanann's friend, Nicole, played a big part he probably would have been caught anyway, but with it going so much faster is her friend Nicole knowing Shanann, knowing, her not answering the phone was very odd. Her not posting probably on Facebook that day, her not going to her doctor's appointment, and her friend saying, hey, something's not right here. And she called for a wellness check that afternoon. Like it was that same day. So he didn't have time because he went to work. So he was just going to play it off.
Right.
And then who knows if he had a plan to come home later.
Because everyone knows that she travels. And then so he had time to do this and time to do that. Yeah, no. And that's what I'm saying is it kind of blew up in his face.
It totally
and we
did.
got to see it, unfold the way that it did. It was just so,
So who knows what lies he would have told if he'd had time. If he'd had time to go to work, come home, not say anything, who knows how long would he have waited before he, called and said, oh, my family's missing. I don't know where my wife is. Would he have gotten rid of their personal effect, the purse, the car? Would he have done something with that? How far was he willing to go? Because obviously he killed them. So he was willing to go pretty dang far, but how far to build that lie? And he got stopped in his tracks. So I think it's very important, to have people in your life that know what's going on, that know you, that kind of wonder about what's going on. I mean, that really caught their killer, having someone, a best friend who knew her very well.
Absolutely.
I'm
just sitting here thinking about, the why. With somebody, because it's a fascinating thing to think about when everyone goes through everything, everybody listening, everybody living their lives. We all go through trials and tribulations. We all go through horrible things. Was it simply because of financial problems and he just found this woman that was his breaking point to commit such atrocities to his own family, his own daughters? Like, you think about what would it take for you to, of course, not to commit such things, but like everyone has their breaking point, right?
Yeah.
If you were, like they say, if you were to walk into somebody else's shoes, you'd be able to really, truly realize that maybe what you're going through isn't as crazy.
Right.
Or the vice versa, that some people go through way less things and over-exaggerate it, right?
Yes.
And so it's like, going back to the why, was it simply just that was what it was? is you couldn't handle the pressures of keeping this facade, of almost keeping up with the Joneses type of
Right.
situation, of this house
Yeah.
that you can't afford. Keeping up with the travel, keeping up with this private school that the girls are at, or whatever what was going on. Of course, if that was truly the case, just the stresses of the world on his shoulders came to the point where it broke his mind so much to where he decided that the only option was to murder his family. Because you're right, there are so many different options.
Yeah.
They suck. But if you're going to make this
Right.
decision, if you're going to cheat on your wife, if you're going to decide to have an affair and bring another person into your life, there are so many different avenues that you can take.
But what made me really think about it, because yes, you could leave, you could get divorced, you could, but the financial aspect of it is what I keep coming back to, right? Because yeah, he could leave, but then he's still going to have child support for 3 kids. He's still going to have an ex that, who knows, maybe he has to pay for the house, maybe he has alimony, maybe, I don't know, what is going through his head, of course. So we have to think about that too. Was that enough for him to just crack?
Yeah.
And go, you know what? I don't want to deal with. He didn't see a way out. It had to be that, right? Like, that's the only thing my brain, because like he had all these scenarios, because I'm an overthinker, right? So I'm gonna start thinking about all these with that, but then what about, and then what about that? I've never got to the point where
Of course not.
it gets so bad, of course. But so he's thinking about all these scenarios money wise. Like they already filed 3 years before that. Just 3 years before they already filed for bankruptcy, and they're already behind. They're already having to pull money out of his retirement fund. They're already going to court. Their HOA was going to court because they owed money. So, he just probably felt like everything was on him. And then the girls were gone, Shanann and the girls were gone. And he had this freedom and he had this whole other world. Like he's even reported to say like he felt like himself for the first time around this Nicole
that's
Kessinger.
what it was then.
Because
that's what I'm saying, right? Is like, yes, the financial troubles are there. The dilemma of figuring out, obviously, he's not very happy with the situation. Everyone, you deal with financial stuff. It's hard to believe that that's truly what cracked. It has to leads you to believe that there was something else, something more extreme, something happened that forced his hand. Because it's hard to sit here and believe as a normal, normal person, but
right.
Commit this action. But maybe it truly was just that. Mm-hmm. So going back to walking in somebody's shoes, it was just genuinely the fact that he had some time. He didn't have to deal with kids. He didn't have to deal with the stresses of life. And
he didn't see a way out.
His only way out was which obviously ultimately it landed in life in prison. It's like, right. There you go. There's your free time, bud.
You're free now. You're free from them. You're not free. But, and what happened in that house that morning? Because she gets back at 2 a.m. Did they have a conversation, and or did they have a fight?
It just ultimately has to come down to impulse.
To a breaking point.
It's an impulse. Mm-hmm. It's so many conflicting emotions going on with, obviously he's got this other woman in his mind. He just had all this free time. He doesn't want that to go away. Mm-hmm. And then it's just this mountain to climb of whether it was divorce or this or that, or so many different avenues that he could have gone through. Those were just way too far gone for him. And it had to just been impulse, and it just happened in the moment. It was probably a state of frustration with the circumstances. Who knows? It very well could have been he wasn't even trying to strangle Shanann, or not trying to, but like he wasn't going to kill her.
Yeah, that wasn't his intent, but it happened.
But one thing led to another, and just impulse in the moment,
and then he
lost control. And oh no, I just killed my pregnant wife. What do I do now? And then still, even in that situation, your ideas go to your daughters, like have nothing to do with your finance, has nothing to do with your issues.
Yeah.
Your daughters did nothing. Has nothing to do with your affair, has nothing to do with your financials at all. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to, I don't know how morbid, but loose ends.
Yeah.
Or
He was just
It
going
was
to
to get
erase it
rid of
all.
all of it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
to get rid of everything, you know?
Yeah. Because you got to think when you're in a new relationship, there's just that euphoric, they call it the honeymoon period, right? And so they're spending a lot of time together. So he's just in this feeling that again, you know, and hadn't felt it in a long time, probably since him and Shanann first got together. So he's with Nicole and he's feeling this again and feeling this joy, and it's such a happy, euphoric time to be in that relationship. And he just, you know, I mean, that's the only thing.
Yeah, no, I get it. And if that's truly the
Yeah,
case, it makes me genuinely sick
right.
because how pathetic
Yes.
to have come and destroyed the lives of
Of
your unborn
everybody.
baby, your 2 daughters, of everybody, of your
Yeah,
wife,
Shanann's family, Shanann's
because of
friends.
something so baseless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Really, truly makes you feel like you just got to be careful with people, man. Like, my goodness.
Right. Yeah. Because you
In every
never
case
know.
and in every way, of course, you know, it's always comes down to things like that. But
I
it's
don't
just, it
think.
really does. What it comes down to is you think for you and I, it's like, obviously you would defend yourself in a crazy
Right.
situation, but you would never go out of your way to hurt the people you love or anything like that. But that's all it took was just some new woman, this fleeting sense of freedom. And that's what did it
That
for
was
you
the
to go to an
catalyst to
extreme.
kill your family.
Like, that is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, other way, how else do you look at it, you know? And I mean, we can't, there's not, like I said, there could have been some extreme that is totally unknown, but probably unlikely. We have all of that we have right in front of us.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he'll ever
No.
come clean for real. And will we know? Because he has lied so much, you know? He has given so many different stories. If he really tells the truth, are we going to be like, yeah, that was it? You know what I mean? At this point, I don't think so. I really don't think we're ever going to know. And I think that happens a lot. We're never going to know what happens behind closed doors. We don't know. We can philosophize, is that the right word? Philosophize what the
Know
reason
what you mean? Yeah.
was, what was going on in his head, and that's what we want to talk about here, is just the what could cause a person to do that. I really think it comes down to the financial part, and he just felt so overwhelmed and he wanted this new life.
And then had the argument that morning,
Mm-hmm.
and it just all was an amalgamation of everything. Like I said, impulse, probably wasn't immediately looking to end his wife's life.
No, I don't think he was.
But it just, with, seeing red.
Yeah. I don't think it was a
Lost
plan.
control.
I really don't think it was a plan. I think it happened.
And then in the shock of the moment, it was like, I need to clean my hands of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And did what he did. And it's just crazy to think about, too, like, the method in which of disposing of the bodies. Like, you could have just buried them all together.
Right. Why put the girls in separate? And those oil tankers, they're huge. You
right.
know,
like, I'm not sure if is there some way to disposing of those or what they're used for explicitly. Obviously, it's more or less just comes down to the fact that Shanann wouldn't have fit.
Right.
Babies did, but it's either way. That's so inhumane.
Yeah. And why go
so
to your
lack
work
of
site? Like, that's what I don't
That's all he
understand.
knew, because that's the thing. I feel like in those situations, the brain is firing.
Right.
It's all only going to go from point A to point B. It's only going to be able to go to what it knows, you know?
I mean, you're in Colorado. You could go out in the middle of nowhere.
It just goes to show that it just wasn't planned, you know? That's not something that he was probably thinking of.
Yeah.
But it just was all the case. You could obviously tell by the way afterwards with all the interviews and things. It was just so sudden.
Yeah, when he was, because they had video of when he was in the house watching in the neighbor's house.
Yeah.
Watching the camera footage. That it too, like, really cemented for me when I was watching the documentary. I was like, oh my gosh, that guy is, yeah. I mean, we knew he was guilty at that point, but watching it was like, oh my gosh, right there. Like, that's when it really clicked, I think, for the police and everything, the investigators, that this guy is freaking out.
Now we just need to get him to talk. Yeah.
And it took a while. I remember watching the interrogation tapes. And
yeah, no, it just really comes down to an incredibly weak-minded individual falling to his own impulses.
Yes.
And trying to collect the pieces after the catastrophe.
Yeah.
I don't even think that he thought that he was capable of such a thing.
Right.
But it all just happened, and in his pathetic, weak mindset and situation, he came down to it. And condolences to the victims, the little ones,
Their families.
Shannon, the families. But that's more or less what this case boils down to.
Yes.
Is we can all agree there was better ways to go about everything in the whole situation.
Yeah, he
And
had
he chose the
options.
worst of the worst. It just goes to show who that person is.
Absolutely. To the core. Like I don't, even in as much I've been angry. I mean, angry.
Oh, yeah.
I've never gotten to the point where
You lost control.
That has happened,
Right.
like that I've always stopped myself. What happens in someone's brain, or what, is it predisposed? Is it just circumstance? I mean, I understand accidents if you're in a fight or there's accidental, but this is like you loved this person. This person is carrying your child. And then to kill your own child, that to
That's what I'm saying. It's the complete lack of mental fortitude in the situation of being in the argument, not being able to control your emotions and your impulses in the current time, not be able to understand in the act of strangling your pregnant wife that this is probably not the right thing to do.
Yeah, stop. There's nothing that said stop in his head.
But it was in that moment, more or less, I keep saying more or less, but like it comes down to maybe he enjoyed the situation of just cleansing himself of what the because he probably thought she was the problem.
Right.
She caused all these issues, this and that.
Oh, I'm sure.
And that is going back to what I was saying, is that's what it did. That's all the things we go through in life. Like that brought you to that point.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Whether you've gone through more or less than anybody else, you would hope that a father, person who's supposed to provide for you, things are that doesn't break under those circumstances. Yeah, even if it wasn't, yes, like go be with who you want to be with. Go do what you want to do. But that's never the answer.
No, never. I mean, I just can't even comprehend. I don't think I'll ever understand anyone that can kill their child. It's just never, it's inconceivable to me I can't even think about you being gone just from, I can't. I don't think we'll ever understand this case. I don't think we'll ever know why Chris did it, what was going on in his head, of course. What was really going on behind closed doors. We only got to see what they put out there. And that happens especially a lot with social media. Nowadays, people put out what you want to see. I don't put on Facebook or Instagram or stuff I don't put my whole world out there.
Right.
Some people do. But you can show the world what you want them to see.
Yeah, you always have to be skeptical of what you see online in terms of what people put out there and the message. I've always said that social media is like you're able to create or live in the confines of your own reality, right?
Right.
Was it true that they were living this lavish life and had all these different things? No. But in their own social media presence and the reality in which they were trying to portray was that, And so it's like you can live in that world through social media. And so you have to be careful when it comes to things like that. But ultimately, I feel like what it comes down to is just an incredibly weak-minded person caught up in a situation that was too much for him. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the ones closest to him paid
the ultimate price.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, good thing we know that he will die in prison.
Yeah.
Never has the possibility to have that freedom that he wanted from his family. So that happened very quickly. And that brings us to the end of another episode of the Baker Files. The case may be closed for today, but the questions, the choices, and the why behind it all is what keeps these stories with us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow the Baker Files and leave us a rating or review. It really helps more listeners find the show. You can find us on Instagram at the Baker Files podcast and TikTok at the.baker.files, where we'll be sharing episode updates, case discussions, and more. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. I'm Adrianne.
I'm Tyler. Appreciate you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Till next time, we are closing the file.